Hey guys, it's Julian. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make breakbeat stuff in the style of like Bicep, Tesella, Over Mono, that style, very ravey, almost jungle influenced, very UK influenced as well. As usual, you can get the full project file, samples, MIDI, presets, every single thing that you heard in the intro of this video is available right in the top of the description on my Bandcamp. Definitely go grab this. It's just $5, but it really helps support me. Plus, you get one of the best project files on the market right now for this style. This can really take your tracks to the next level and show you what you're missing to get your tracks sounding as good as you want them to be. Link is at the top of the description. Thank you so much for the support, guys. I don't make a whole lot just off of YouTube, but every sale of these really helps keep me going. And yeah, thanks guys, let's dive in. So, run 131 BPM. The first thing we have up here is going to be the bass. So what's happening here is we actually have a pretty simple chord progression. We're doing A major, C sharp minor, E major, and then B major. That's all it is. And if you look at the other stuff, you'll see that too, like in this piano. Yeah, it's just that simple chord progression. But then what's happening here is, since it's the bass, we have some of these extra high notes. Like, basically in the middle of every 4 bars, you just get that. And the key to these is that you want to treat this kind of like a melody, but if you look, it's not that complicated. Like this one right here is the same note that's being played right there, just up an octave, and then you can see we're walking basically up to the next chord. You get like a, right, and then when you put those up an octave, you don't notice it as much, but essentially that's what's making that so catchy. And then you can see same deal there. We're just walking back down to that chord at the end. So that's how you want to think about that. For the actual sound on this one, it's made using 2 layers. So we have this little, so it's actually technically 3 layers. So we have this respace, which you can hear is pretty fat. And basically this is made with 2 layers. We have this one right here, which is just 2 saw waves with a bunch of unison. And then this one, which is 1 saw wave with no unison. And then you put those together and you get one really fat saw wave, and then just a little bit of drum bus and high pass on those. And then we have the sub bass. Now this is a technique I've shown you guys before. You take a square wave, low pass it a bunch, and then by cutting out all those highs and mid-range, you're left with just like a fat low end that sits really well underneath that respace there. And then we just have a little bit of EQ to cut out the mud on that. And yeah, then we have the piano. So again, these are just that same chord progression that the bass was playing. But with this, we're doing what's called diads. So basically, it's just a fancy way of saying chords with 2 notes. So you can see right here, the 2 notes that we're using, if I put these down an octave, we're using the root note and the minor third, or major third if these are major chords. Like, that's a major third, that's a minor third, because it's a minor chord. And essentially what we're doing with those is by having just those 2 notes, it's everything you need to know to kind of get like the mood of the chord with nothing missing, essentially. With nothing extra. Like, it's just giving you what you need, and it's not all these extra voices. Because if you start going in, and let's say we do like octaves, and then we do fifths, see, all of a sudden now it's starting to take up like some ranges that you don't want. So keeping it really simple when you have so many instruments happening, like in this track, is usually the best. And then for the sound, this is this piano sample, like a classic M1 piano, with a little bit of echo, a little bit of reverb as well, and then just an EQ cutting out the lows. And then we have this pad. So this pad is following the chord progression as well. You can see the root notes are the same as the chords, but then where the difference is up top here. You can see all these notes. essentially that's kind of like its own little progression there. So it's still following the progression and it still works with these. But now we're adding some notes in there that you wouldn't get from that main chord progression that are going to really add a lot of flavor and character to this pattern. And then for the sound, this is made with wavetable. So we have this Galactica wavetable here, and then a saw wave going into a low pass filter, which you can see on the low pass and also on the position of oscillator 1. You can see we have an LFO. So that's what's creating that movement. And then we have a bunch of unison. It's on the noise setting. We have a bit of reverb, some saturation to kind of fatten it up. And bring it out a little bit more, and then finally just a high pass filter. And yeah, then we have the lead. So yeah, we're in the key of A major. So the key to this one is that you have this top melody that's always going. Like, it's the same thing. Right? But then when you add in the bottom notes, it's just walking up the chord progression against the same root notes you've been seeing all through this. But now it gives you that foundation. So even though the top notes are staying the same, you have this thing changing in the bottom, and that's what creates that kind of like sound. And it's also the groove too of those notes. The actual placement of the notes is important with this. If we play this with the breakbeat, it needs to groove with that. These aren't like randomly placed notes. This is very carefully selected to fit into that. And then for the actual sound on this one, it's made using wavetable. It's just a saw wave with this classic unison mode. And then I've got a little bit of an envelope on the filter frequency as well. And yeah, then we just have a bit of unison. I've got some echo, a little bit of drum bus, which you can see is blended on there so it's not messing up the original sound. And then just a high pass filter. Then we have the vocals. So yeah, these ones you can see the processing, very simple, just a bit of echo and reverb, and then some reverb on the second one. It's really about finding like a great vocal sample. I think a lot of people wonder like, you know, how do I just grab some random sample from Splice and make it sound as good as these tracks? Well, the truth is, I think a lot of the work goes in with actually finding like the best samples. And you'll know it when you hear it. You'll know when you hear a vocal sample that's really catchy and memorable. It's just like, yeah, you can't just kind of take anything. Like, it has to have a really good melody. It has to have a really good texture to it originally, too. Like, we're not using any compression or saturation or anything like that. It's just, like, what's already there in the sample, and then just how well that fits with what you have going on. So then, down here we have the breakbeat. And so we're going to start kind of like in the order I would make it. So we start here with the kick and the snare. A lot of people think actually when you're making something like this that you want to start with this. And you can if you want to get inspiration from it, but in terms of like actually making the foundation of this and making it so that it'll actually work and you won't be constantly wondering why like you don't have the right kick processing plugin or something like that, you need to start with these. Right, and these need to be punching with or without this. So, you can see here, it's not that hard either. I mean, none of these have any processing on them. It's just good samples, selected carefully, and then the levels are set right. You can see, like, this is just this fat 909 tech house kick. But because it's leveled out right, you know, it's pretty loud actually compared to everything else in the mix. And because it's just hitting right already in the sample, it's going to sit really nicely underneath that. And then same deal with the snare. So this is actually 2 layers. Both of those, yeah, you can see if we put them together. You know, it's just a nice punchy snare that will punch through the whole mix regardless. So then we move up to the actual breakbeat. So again, everybody thinks it's just this, but you actually need like this on its own isn't really going to do it. And if you just take one of these and try to just like, you know, it just doesn't have enough punch, especially when you compare it to something like this. So that's what you need to keep in mind. And so for this one, we have this, which has like a lot of texture to it already. And I'm just adding a little bit of drum bus with the dry wet set there. So it's not really like fully distorted. It's just like a little bit more crunch and texture on top of it as a layer. We have a high pass filter because you don't want this to have any low end. You want all the low end to come from that kick and from the bass. And then we actually have a little bit of compression, just to kind of even it out a little bit and make it a bit flatter. You don't want to do too much on that, but just a little bit can go a long way. So now, at this stage, you should be about here. It's good, but it's not quite there yet. So the next thing we have is just like a little hi-hat. It's really subtle, but just having that little tss, tss, tss on the upbeats like that really adds a lot of groove, I think. And then we add this tambourine, which is subtle, but it's adding a little bit more groove and a little bit more like that energy. And then finally, we add in these, which are actually another break that I chopped up. Right, it's just that, but then you put that over top of the whole thing. So here's without it, and then with it. Right, and that's just got like a high pass filter on it, but it just adds a little bit more groove on top of everything. And yeah, so that's gonna be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project file, samples, MIDI, presets, literally every single thing from this video is available right at the top of the description. Definitely go grab that. It really helps support me. If I've helped you get better at production, or if you've learned anything from these videos, definitely go support this. You get an amazing sample pack with tons of great stuff in it. Plus, it's gonna help support me and keep me going, so I can keep bringing you guys new videos all the time. Thank you so much for the support, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.